Hi and welcome to Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. Today I'm going to be sharing one of my favourite flower paintings from a while ago with you. These beautiful Ox Eye Daisies with semi-abstract background created by salt effects and using the wet in wet technique to get this lovely washy background. But first, a quick plug for my new book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner. It's available to buy from all good bookstores. There are a couple of links to follow below if you're interested. Now let's get back to this demo and I hope you enjoy it. Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be painting this beautiful Ox Eye Daisy watercolour painting using salt to create these beautiful effects of these sort of little semi-abstract flowers that surround the daisies. Now the first thing I did was to draw in my daisies from a photograph that I found on Pixabay, and I used that to just sketch out the basic shapes of the daisies, and then I painted them over with masking fluid so that I can protect the white of the paper for the flowers and then just get on with having a lot of fun creating this background wash. In order for my salt effects to work, I need to get quite a good thick layer of paint on, so that's what I'm going to focus on first. I wet my paper all over, roughly, with my extra large Pro Art Ron Ranson Harkey brush, and this is perylene green and Prussian blue. I'm just getting quite a large amount of it fresh from the tube straight onto the painting. Now my board is at an angle of 45 degrees, so you can see the paint running down, and I just sprayed it with the misting spray to get it to run even more. It's looking quite dark at the moment, but I need plenty of paint on there or I won't get my salt effects later. And once the paint has run as far as I want it to, I'll lay it flat and then add a bit more of the paint across the bottom of the page just to thicken it up a bit more. Laying it flat will stop the wash running and running off my page. It's very, very wet at the moment, but I'm liking the way it's looking, but I want to just add a bit of texture and a bit more tone across the bottom. So this is Prussian blue on a stiff sort of bristle brush, and I'm just using inky consistency paint and tapping it onto the painting. And then I shall dip my hand into the water jar and just flick some water onto the page, and that will give me little sort of paler blooms. Some of those will probably disappear, but it just all adds to the different textures and tones and soft diffusions in this background. So just a bit more water flicked onto it to help the softening and diffusing process. And now this is the corner of a plastic store card swept through the paint, giving me my daisy stems, some grass stems, sort of miscellaneous stems for various plants and flowers that hopefully the salt will produce when I apply it in a minute, when the paint's a little bit drier. I really like the background as it is now, and I'm going to be doing another painting at some point, just leaving it at this stage to dry and then finishing the painting off. But I want to take this a bit further. I want to use the salt and really push some of that paint away using the properties of the salt grains, which pushes the paint and the water away. If you put it onto the paint when it's just damp, if it's too wet, the salt will dissolve or make a bit of a mess and won't do anything. If it's too dry, there'll be no effect. But if you just wait until the sheen goes off the paper, as I have here, and then sprinkle on the salt where you want it, then we should end up with some beautiful background flowers for these daisies, like little tiny flowers and seed heads and grasses, just implied by the salt effects. And here we are. This is leaving it to dry for a couple of hours, and I must admit I wasn't expecting quite as much salt as that, but it's an unpredictable medium, so it's a good idea to be prepared to sort of be fairly flexible and work with what the salt gives you. So now that I've gotten over the initial shock of seeing how much salt effects I got, I'm brushing off the dry salt using a clean dry brush, removing it all, and then I shall remove all the masking fluid from the flowers simply by rubbing them with my finger, or you can use a piece of masking tape, or you can use a rubber or an eraser to rub off the masking fluid. That will leave us with our unpainted Ox Eye Daisies ready to finish them off. This is my small calligraphy brush. The hairs are about 1.5 centimetres long, or half an inch long. I think it's what's known as a rat liner brush. And I'm using gamboge now to paint in those lovely bright yellow eyes of the Ox Eye Daisies. I'm hoping you can see that just this little bit of fresh yellow introduced against the soft greens and blues and whites is really making things pop very, very simply. I think it's starting to sort of make sense of the design here. It's just what we need. And very often when you're painting, your painting will go through stages where it looks beautiful, then it'll look ugly, and then hopefully it looks beautiful again when you put on the finishing touches, which is what we're doing here. Now, even though the salt behaved in a much stronger way than I was expecting it to here, now I'm getting used to it. I really like the effects. I think they're very, very pretty. It reminds me of those little tiny white flowers that you get. I think it's called gypsophilia or something like that. And I think it makes a really nice complement to the large Ox Eye Daisies. So next I'm going to strengthen up some of the stems coming down from the daisies, and I'm just going to put in a few bits of foliage, leaves, something and nothing, just a few stems here and there, just to pull the painting together a little bit more. So it looks like these daisies are growing out of a sort of a tangled field boundary or something like that, or an overgrown flower border. So I'm going to now swap between my small calligraphy brush and a number 1 Perylene Bright synthetic round brush, and put in the leaves and the foliage. So I want to get some variety to my leaves and my foliage. Some of these leaves I want to be much larger, just maybe from brambles or weeds or something like that, just growing up through the patch of daisies. So this is my Perylene Bright brush, but any sort of small to medium-sized round brush with a good point, you can just flick it off like that and create these lovely leaf shapes. And if we bring some of the stems up across the top of the tape, then it helps to bring this painting together and to balance out the composition. And you can see that some of the leaves, especially around the bottom area of the painting, are a lot darker than others. And that, once the tape's removed, will help to sort of ground the painting. But I'm hoping that it helps to draw attention to the bright white of and yellow of the daisies. This is a plastic card. I'm just scraping through some white veins through a few of the leaves, just for a bit of extra texture. And then just a few finishing touches with my stiff bristle brush. I'm now spattering on some of the green and Prussian blue mixture, wet paint onto the dry painting for some harder little tiny spatter marks, just to help to add texture and interest to this painting. It sort of really contrasts nicely against the very soft salt patterns to have these darker spots here and there, mostly around the bottom half of the painting, but a few trailing up across the top too. And then stepping back and looking at it, and then just putting in a few finishing touches of leaves just to finish off the composition and the sort of pattern that I'm seeing developing in front of me. I think the trick is here to sort of get it as busy as you can get it, but without it looking overworked or overdone. Now I'm going to stop now and see how it looks, and remove the tape and see how it looks with its nice clean white border. I forgot to say the paper that I'm using is Saunders Waterford cold press paper. It's 140 pound or 300 grams weight. Cold pressed is a lovely surface for this kind of painting. Well, I think that's turned out quite nicely. Despite the shocking effects of the salt, which had much more extreme effect than I was expecting, I think it looks really, really pretty. And we've hardly had to paint the daisies at all. I masked them out, and so basically they've been painted pretty much negatively, just by the paint that's formed around them and by the gamboge that I used for the eyes of the Ox Eye Daisies. Well, I hope you found that helpful and that you'll have a go at something similar. It can be so much fun to sort of play with paint, with a painting like this that kind of mixes sort of fairly realistic flowers with lots of sort of abstract shapes and forms. Thank you so much for watching. Please click on the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, I hope that you'll consider doing so, because it's free to do and it really helps us with our reach on YouTube. And thanks so much to all our supporters on Patreon. We really do appreciate you. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.